Hello!
Hi! Again.
It's us again.
Here we are.
Here we are. Again.
Again.
Yes, we're excited to do another episode.
Yeah.
So-
What is this? 4, 5, 4?
Is this
I don't know. I'm
4?
losing track.
4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes.
Yes.
We are only 4 years old.
Oh, good God.
We're 4 episodes
We're
old.
in we are 4 episodes old. Aww, that's really cute.
Oh gosh.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna start now because y'all are probably like, okay,
Right.
really?
Here we go.
Can they say that?
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 Can they say that? They can, and they will.
Hey, everybody out there in podcast land. Welcome, welcome.
Welcome.
I am Gina Berkmeyer,
And I am Polly Hamp.
and this is Can They Say That?
They can.
And they will.
Yes.
And we do.
It's true.
Yeah, yeah. So today we are going to be talking about something that I like to call your best no. N-O, not K-N-O-W.
Kno.
Although, maybe, but mostly N-O. This came out of something that I was thinking about when I heard somebody say the phrase, actually more than once, the phrase, your best yes. Everybody wants to give their best yes, right? I'm going to give my best yes.
Yeah, ditto.
And I think the challenge with that is that we might be starting sometimes at the wrong end, and we might need to investigate a little bit about what our best no is before. No? Yes. Before we can give our best yes.
Yeah.
So that's what I wanted to talk about today.
I'm excited about this.
Thanks.
It's important. The no is really important.
Yeah, it really is. I think it's very hard in this culture. Yes is always seen as positive, no as negative. There's always that relationship of yes is positive, no is negative. And I want to be careful with always, maybe not always, but most of the time we do see it in that relational perspective. Yes is positive, no is negative, particularly in relationships.
Yes.
And I would like to maybe shift that and get the no to be looked at as a positive in some instances.
I like that.
Thanks. So let's talk about that. I know for a long time, part of what this comes down to, we're going to talk about boundaries, and we're going to talk about codependency, because I think the no and the yes are both wrapped up in both of those things. So for a long time, I would say that I did not live a very boundaried life. And my lack of boundaries was motivated by fear, motivated by conditioning. I think that there are a lot of us who can relate to the conditioning, even though we perhaps don't know to label it that way, because I didn't for a very long time. I didn't know to label it as conditioning, but it really was conditioning. And it was that being brought up in a home that was extremely dysfunctional, where there was alcohol and substance abuse, where there was some issues of neglect and things like that. It was very difficult to feel like, first of all, that my voice mattered. And for sure that saying no was not an option. So I was conditioned for the yes because the yes came with reward and the no came with punishment. And oftentimes that punishment looked like withdrawal of acceptance, withdrawal of affection, withdrawal of care, withdrawal of nurturing. So the yes, really, I felt like my overall well-being was contingent on the yes. So if this is hitting home already a little bit, or if you're curious right now, you're thinking, well, I think I'm pretty good at no's. I'm not sure. Does this fit me? There are some questions we can ask ourselves right out of the gate. We can look a little bit at our own history. We can look a little bit at, are we adult children of alcoholics or adult children of people who struggled with addiction? Is there a history of abuse where our voice was not heard? And abuse, I'm going to use that very generally, because whether we're talking about neglect emotional abuse, mental abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, all of those of verbal abuse, all of those affect the no and the yes that we are conditioned to bring into adulthood. So thinking about that, were your parents codependent? It is very generational, extremely generational. It's funny because sometimes we don't realize what we're carrying forward that actually didn't belong to us in the beginning.
Yeah.
And I could tell a really abbreviated, short version of the ham story. Should I tell the ham story?
Yeah, it's going to be in your book.
It is going to be in my book. Yeah. So a little snippet of the ham story. Many of you have perhaps heard this story. I like to tell it because it is so important when we look at things that are generational.
Yeah.
And the story goes that there's this wonderful woman who, one of her favorite ways to show her love to her family was to make these amazing Easter feasts with all kinds of delicacies and wonderful, amazing concoctions. But the centerpiece, the piece de resistance each year at Easter, was this amazing ham. And she would painstakingly glaze the ham, place the pineapples and the cherries and the cloves, slice the ends off ever so gently, making sure that everything was perfect when she baked this ham. And as time went on, her daughter learned to do the same thing. And as time went on, granddaughter got married, and then it became the third generation's turn to host Easter. And just like the generations before, granddaughter is now taking out the ham, and she's painstakingly glazing the ham and placing the pineapple and the cherry and the clove, and she places it in the pan, and mother says, "Whoa, hold on. You didn't cut the ends off the ham." And daughter says, "Well, Mom, I think we could just go ahead and bake it like this. I'd like to see how it turns out." And mother says, "But it's turned out so great every year. Why would we do that?" And daughter says, "Well, why do we cut the ends off? What's the purpose of that?" Mother pauses, gets this quizzical look on her face. She has no idea, right? Calls for grandma. Grandma comes shuffling in from the living room. "Mom, your granddaughter wants to know why we cut these ends off the ham. Explain to her why that's the better way to make the ham." Grandmother shakes her head and smiles and says, "Oh, sweetheart, I just didn't have a pan big enough for the whole ham to fit into." And so that's a funny story.
Yeah.
And yet how many things do we carry forward in life from generations gone by because we just think that's the way you do it.
Yeah.
We don't ask the questions. We don't do the investigation. That's just the way you do it. But we don't know what we don't know until we start asking the questions.
Until you know.
Until you know. That's right.
That's a good K-N-O-W.
That's a K-N-O-W.
Yeah.
That's right. So I think that when we look at telling the no, it's one of those things, where have we been conditioned? What have we brought forward in life from family and things like that that really give us a sticking point with our no?
And it's so hard to, to change the ship, to turn the ship, to know that, my no was silenced and it wasn't an option. When people, even if you're saying it inside of your head and everything in your body is saying no, but they're saying yes for you, it gets silenced and conditions you, grooms you, if you will, to live this life of going, my no does not matter. And it put me I put myself in very dangerous situations where no was not an option. It was not an option. And from that, the consequences were huge, huge. And then you end up carrying that throughout your whole life, where the no becomes a terrifying word.
Right.
Because if I say no, what's going to happen to me?
Right.
If I say no, will people, like you said, turn away from me? Even the ones that say they love me, and I say that I love them, and all that, and you still have this like almost inner vow to go, if I say no, will I be shut out? And will I not be accepted? And so you just end up almost giving yourself away to please others.
Right. And I think that it's that whole risk versus reward thing, right? We feel like the reward is in the yes. We don't recognize the reward can be in the no.
Yeah.
And the other thing that we don't recognize is when we're not giving our best no to someone else, we're giving it to we're telling ourselves no.
Wow.
I mean, it's a really unhealthy no to ourselves because we're not giving our best no to someone else.
Right. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I've not turned it to self. I like that.
Yeah.
One of the things I do with my clients is when I first start seeing them, I kind of lay out what I do, how we can work together and things like that. And then those who have filled out their paperwork, who have abuse to where it looks like, their no was also silenced. I always say, if we are ever in a place where you feel like you don't want to move forward and you say no, I will stop. Because your no is valuable to me.
Yeah.
I won't even question. We'll get back to it. Time, I know that we'll have time to explore what that no was, but we'll get to talk about, your no means no.
Right.
And you only have to say it one time.
Right.
And the power of getting to just put your toe in the water. I'm like, just test me. Test me. Say no to me.
Yeah.
And it's amazing when it almost interrupts the thoughts of the people going, wait, I can say no?
And have it heard.
And have it heard?
Respected.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's good. I think so with a lot of my clients who have high trauma, one of the things that, especially if it's pre-language, if it comes from a phase of life where there was really, not that our brain ever really has a true context for trauma because it's always foreign to the brain, but that they don't have that verbal capacity to say this is what's happening with me in words. And oftentimes even being emotionally heightened in the sense of when something comes up for somebody, they might not be able to get full faculty of the words, right? So in my sessions, particularly when I'm doing something called EMDR, it isn't even a word, it's just a hand up to me, a very clear, open palm hand towards me that says no or stop or whatever. And because I don't want them to feel like if they can't get the word, or even if they're terrified of the word, right, that they have a secondary to go to, and then building from there. Now let's add the word stop or add the word no. And I think it's important, whatever your no is. One thing that I tell people often is that no is a complete sentence. Now, how hard is that to pull off? Would you like to come over on Saturday? No. Awkward, horrific pause, right? And I think, use that wisely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's okay to say, no, I have a previous engagement. No, I've been spread very thin this week. Yeah. But the truth is, no is a complete sentence. It really is. And I think when we're talking about the whole arena of the historical conditioning for saying yes, is to pull away from just the no and the yes and let your no stand for not obligated.
I love that.
So
the acronym of the week. No, not obligated.
Right.
Yes.
So, and I don't know that originates here. It's just something that came to me when I was working on information for this episode. But to me, not obligated. It's a quick little question I can ask myself when someone says to me, right, like if my child says, Mom, can I have some dinner? And I don't have any littles anymore. So grands. If one of my grands says, Gigi, can I have some dinner? And my filter, I'm practicing my filter, my not obligated. Yes, I am obligated. I need to feed those grands,
yes,
right?
Yes.
But if it's, well, you take I got an F on this test. Why didn't you help me more? I'm not obligated to take responsibility for that, right? So just sort of learning what we are obligated for, what we're obligated to, right? I think is really helpful.
Hey, I know tomorrow is my school play, and I need 50 cupcakes.
Not obligated.
How many of us? I mean, I would do that. I would say yes, because I'm like, oh, I'm going to let the class down, and I'm going to let people down. I'm going to let my kid down. What are people going to think about my kid, and all that kind of stuff? And then, you know what? That's not my responsibility. And it's looking at the big picture of what backs that up. And then, if you feel like that's something you want to do, figure out a strategy that helps set up for not being pressured into the no.
And how you give that responsibility to kiddo who comes to you at 7 p.m. and says, I need 50 cupcakes for the school play tomorrow, right? Mm-hmm. So in that moment, it's, okay, you need to put your computer away.
Yes.
Stop playing your game. Mm-hmm. You're going to come out here and you're going to cook these. You're going to make these cupcakes with me.
Or ask the question, so what are you going to do about that?
Now, if they're 7,
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
But
yes.
yeah.
I know I never did that to my
Right.
mother.
Yeah.
Maybe once, but yeah. But it's really, it's helping set up for other no's, but then expectations where you don't give your yes away in aggravation.
That's right.
You don't give it in frustration and all of that's like, okay, so how do we problem solve this? And whether it be
Right.
with kids or it be at work, ministry, church,
Church is a big one, y'all. Oh,
Yeah.
mercy me. Church is a big one.
you just need to serve. And it's true. We are called to
We
serve.
are
We
called
are
to serve.
servants.
We are
right?
called to serve, yes.
But if
However,
yes, even Jesus had boundaries.
he got away and took his time and
ones.
did the stuff that he needed to do for
Yes.
himself to be well. Because if you're constantly giving the yes all the time, if you're not using your best no, then you are diluting, right? Thinning out, changing the impact of your yes.
Yeah.
Because there's only so much of you to go around. So you said something I want to loop back to when you were talking about the cupcake thing.
Yes.
And you said, also ask yourself, do you want to do this?
Yeah.
So when I talk to people about the signs that they might need to work on their best no and their boundaries, one of the things that I ask them is, where do they have a sense of resentment in relationships?
Ooh.
Because if you are often saying yes to things that you just want to say no, there's a good chance you're going to be pretty resentful towards that person.
Yeah.
And I will tell you time and time again, what I have seen is that whether you want to admit it to yourself or not, if you have that resentment, people leak. We leak, and it will leak out. They will say something that's totally benign, like, is there any more coffee? And in your head, you're going to hear, they want me to make another pot of coffee. And all they've said is there more coffee? And you're going to snap their face off. Right? So looking at where you might have resentment in relationships is a really good indicator and way to know, maybe I need to be practicing my no a little bit more.
That's good. Yes. Yeah, I've experienced that a couple of times in that assumption that they're assuming that they want me to do the thing. And that's when communication is huge. Yes, no is a sentence. And it's like, no. But ask questions, So are you asking me to make coffee? Let's make the covert overt.
Yeah.
Meaning covert, meaning like
Undercover.
Yeah. I'm trying to
implicit and explicit.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
more implicit.
And then overt is just saying the thing. Hey, will you make some coffee, please?
Yeah. I just want to put a little qualifier
Okay.
on that. Ask the question. If they say, is there more coffee? Because a lot of times when people know that you really suck at no,
Oh yeah.
they will do the backhanded manipulative ask. Because is there more coffee actually does mean go make us another pot of coffee.
Yes.
So if you don't want to make the second pot, just say no. If it's all gone, just say no.
There's not-
And walk away.
Yeah.
If they want you to make a pot, they need to be responsible to ask the question. You don't need to be responsible to ask them to ask the question, right?
So when you guys start doing this,
Woo, look out.
you do know that waves will be made.
Oh, yes.
You're gonna shift, especially if you've been the foundational codependent that has just said yes to everything, and you read between all of the lines, and you're like the most intricate understander of covert communication, and then you're like, no, there's not more coffee. Okay, I'm gonna go paint my nails,
Right.
Or clean the lint out of my belly button.
Gotta go. Bye.
Exactly. And so it's going to make waves. And you'll get to see some colors of people that you might be surprised, actually.
It's true.
But you're going to get yourself back in the process. And there's a way to do it. Again, we really want to reiterate, we really want to talk about kindness. There's a way to say no and still be kind, not like, no, damn it, It's like,
Well, sometimes.
you might need to get to that place because they might not hear, but, there is a way to do it that it keeps you true to yourself.
Right, that's right.
And if you find yourself screaming no all the time, you might really please look at that.
Yeah.
Because if you're using emotions to control your no and to control others with your no or your yes, then there's a very, very big pattern that's going on that
It's a deeper root
manipulates-
than you think it is.
Exactly.
If that's what's going
Thank
on.
you.
It's a deeper root than
Yeah.
you think it is. So while you're talking about signals and signs, let's keep going with that a little bit.
Okay.
So ways to tell if you're not giving your best no. I think there are some physical signs. Your stress is really high. You're super fatigued all the time. Your self-care is in the toilet. You are not taking care of you. You do feel diluted. You do feel like there's not enough you to go around. All of those things. So that would be some of the physical. When stress is high, other physical things that can start happening is you crave sweets a lot. You want to sleep more. Again, self-care goes to the wayside. You can't handle just, relatively benign small things the way that you used to be able to. It could be that you're significantly overloaded and your boundaries need a little bit of overhaul or even creating. So I would say that those are some more physical before I move on.
Well, I just think about disease. When we
yes.
carry everybody else's stuff, I know I'd love to really branch out on this topic in another podcast, but when we carry everybody else's stuff, I believe, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis about 8 or 9 years ago. And I think it's because I didn't have a no.
Yes.
And I ended up carrying so much that wasn't mine to carry because I thought it was my responsibility, that I made myself physically sick. And I am not saying, please don't hear me say, I think all disease is connected to the emotional.
But there is good science out there
Very
that,
much so.
that shows that there is absolutely a connective tissue there.
Yeah.
And at 14 years ago, I was diagnosed with adrenal fatigue.
Yeah.
And for the same reasons. My yes was significantly diluted. I was completely stretched thin. And I was suffering physically because I didn't have the greatest no and I didn't have the greatest boundaries.
Yeah.
So this is something we're speaking about on a personal level as well as a professional level here. So we get it. And we also get that this is not easy and that you can't just flip a switch and become a super boundaried, excellent, best no kind of person tomorrow. It takes work. And so a couple other things before we run out of time. Emotional signs. Just weepiness, quick to anger, quick to feel insecure, quick to feel like all of your acceptance, all your positives are contingent, low self-worth, low self-esteem, self-value, not being able to rest, having that inner sense of peace.
Yeah.
I think all of those can be emotional signs that you're spread too thin, that you need to work on your best no. And then what are your expectations of others?
Ooh,
It's funny because we don't often think the two are connected because we think we're always doing for others. But the truth is and this is sort of tied to the resentment, there's that little voice internally that says, well, why didn't they do that for me? Or why didn't they help me with that? Or everybody expects me to do all these things. And then, so you're projecting your expectations on someone else because of the unreasonable expectations you've put on yourself. And so I think that is a really good flag as well.
Yeah.
To know that that's happening. And let me just say, there's some great resources out there to help with boundaries. We'll post some things on our Facebook page after this launch. There's some really great books out there that can help with boundaries, that can help with your no, all of those kinds of things. I think one thing that's important to remember about boundaries is that they are not, don't think of boundaries as concrete walls.
That's good.
Think of boundaries as, the barricades that they put on streets when there's parades and things like that. Think of them like that. They're a very clear marker that you do not come into this space, right? But they can be moved. They can be reconfigured. They can block off a different area of a street, of a route. They can sort of open up to let some things in. So I think it's important to learn how to be, we want you to be flexible. I think that's important. Rigidity is not any better than being overly filled with the answer yes, right? Like we don't want to take the pendulum from one extreme and swing,
because then you get the exact same thing.
Same exact thing. But yeah, and then I have some ideas for moving forward, but before.
I think, that's good. I think we, just with time, I would love to talk about what the action is and the questions to ask ourselves and all of that.
Yeah. So I think some good questions to ask. Do I feel diluted? Right? Take a look at that. Make a list even.
Yes.
Write down all the places where you are saying yes. Okay. And really take a look at how reasonable that list is. And don't forget things like, sure, I'll take the carpool all 5 days this week. Right? Or, yes, I will take so-and-so's load at work because of XYZ. Whatever it might be, whatever the extremes are, right? Just really pay attention to that. And then maybe make that one column, and then the other column, how many yeses are you saying to yourself? Are you saying, because remember, the yes to somebody else is a no to you. So write down things like exercise, sleep, any self-care, things you enjoy. Do you like to paint? Do you like to sing? Do you like to run? Do you like to walk? Do you like to visit with friends? Go out for coffee? What are all of those things? Find those things and then write them on the list. Okay? And do a little examination there. What are you doing to fill the cup? Because you cannot pour out of that empty cup. You can't do it. So, and then I would say, what about building your tribe? Think about that. Build a tribe minus the codependency, right? Finding people that, and you'll know who they are. You'll see them and you'll say, wow, I think that's a really boundaried person. And perhaps you know because they've told you no.
Yes.
So, and who are they?
And, to add to the friendship thing and the tribe thing, you don't have to immediately trust people.
No.
Just take it slow.
You don't
Get
have to immediately
know somebody.
Distrust them either.
Right.
Just be neutral.
Yeah.
So you're Switzerland
and so
until you figure it out.
And when I say trust people, I mean, just give them the benefit of the doubt, but you don't have to jump in all the way into friendships, because I think what happens is then we realize we end up getting hurt. It's like, oh, how did that happen? It's like, let's just get to know each other. And then, as the progression happens, you don't meet a guy the first time or a girl the first time and then you go get married the next day.
Right.
And so just trust your discernment.
Yes. And I think law of inner circle, Maxwell's law of inner circle, you could do sort of an offshoot of that, because there may be people in your life presently who are definitely members of the tribe. You don't want to vote them off the island. You want them in your tribe. And those are people that will kind of help you with some of these issues. Give some people permission to hold you accountable.
Yes.
To say no. And the law of the inner circle, we can borrow from that. So basically take a look at maybe the top 6 or 8 people in your life and put a little plus or minus next to who of those people really feel like there is a reciprocity in the relationship. There is an air of, yes, I do for them, but it's not over the top. It's not my love from them, their love for me is not contingent upon my yes. And these are people that I could practice my no with, and I could tell them what I'm doing, and I can practice my no. And I think that would be a way to start making those lists and figuring those things out. I think that would be helpful.
So I want to say one thing before. I want to challenge a little bit about what you said when you said your yes to somebody else is a no to you. I'm not sure, because I think like when I say yes to my husband, it's a yes for me too.
That's different though.
Because it's a connection. I don't think I'm taking away when, if I say yes to you, I don't think I'm taking away, because there's this combination of a yes that is positive for the both of us.
Right.
And so, Yet if you're giving yourself away with every yes,
That's what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
okay.
That's what I'm talking about. And that's why I suggest, I really want us to work on that this week, all of you out there. Make those lists, because when you see that list of things that feed your soul, that list of things that you need for you to be well, emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, when those things are suffering because you have this extensive list of yeses to someone else, then you have an extensive list of no's to yourself, clearly. So, yes. And loving well. One
Yeah.
last thing, I just want to say loving well. Y'all, I promise you can say no to somebody and it can be the most loving thing that you can do.
Yes.
I know it won't feel that way. I totally get that. And yet, it's still true.
it's so true. Yeah. Okay, so everybody, right now, on the count of 3, you're going to say no. Period. No. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
No.
Okay, keep practicing. It might
Look
be
in the mirror.
Look in the mirror. It might be a foreign word to you.
Yes.
So,
That was
okay.
good.
Love you guys. Have a great
Thanks.
day, and we will see you next week.
Next week.
Okay.
Have a good week. Bye,
Bye.
guys. Practice your no.
No.
No.